So, good evening. We'll begin from where we left yesterday. We were talking about things in block one. We had understood what communication is. We had spoken about business communication. We had considered certain case studies and all these case studies, if you remember. I'm sure you're able to see my screen. Then what are the 7 C's of communication? The elements, process of communication, linear, Shannon-Weaver model, barriers. Again, we did some case studies. What is semantics? And then these cases. And we began with verbal and non-verbal communication. The differences, I had defined what they are, and what are the differences between them. We had spoken about written communication, verbal, paralanguage, prosthetics, kinesics, eye contact, postures, gestures, and then facial expressions, clothes. And now we're supposed to begin with proxemics. Now, what is proxemics? Proxemics refer to usage of distance to express some piece of information. Cool. So how far or close two people are, this also explains a lot. So when you meet new people, I'm sure you yourself do it, and it is automatically done. Nobody needs to do it deliberately. When you meet somebody new, you are at a distance with that person. And the people who are very close to you, the ones whom you know very well, automatically you go close to each other, right? So the experts have divided this spacing into zones. The closest zone is called the intimate zone, zone 1, 0 to 18 inches. So people who are very close to you, very intimate to you, only they come into this zone. Your parents, your children, your partners, your spouse. These are the people who come as close to you as 18 inches and within. Zone 2 is your personal zone. People who are close to you, but then not intimate. They are a part of this zone. So 18 inches to 4 feet. So friends, relatives, maybe your associates in your office, they are the ones who come as close to you. Zone 3 is a social zone where 4 feet to 12 feet is the distance where usually in during social gatherings people come close to you. At times co-workers who are not acquainted to you, and work situations. While
Excuse me, sir. Your
yes,
voice is not audible because Mr. Kamleshawar's mic is on.
okay, let me once again put him on mute. Oh, he's muted.
Yes, now you are audible.
Yes. And then we come to zone. Zone 4, which is a public distance or space, 12 feet and beyond that. So people who are totally strangers, people who are probably performing somewhere, and they could be probably officials whom you're meeting. These people, you maintain a distance of 12 feet. Now, see, nobody goes with an inch tape or a measuring tape to measure and then stand at a distance. This automatically happens, and it is a social norm. It is something that is very well imbibed within ourselves. It is a training of brain which automatically happens right from childhood. And of course, it comes from culture, it comes from the surroundings and people around you. So nobody needs to teach you. But then when you study them, you realize, oh yes, this is right. People who are very close and intimate, they come into this zone and they only come to your enter your intimate or zone 1 area. So yes, so proxemics is the study of all this spacing and distance and how close people come. This is called proxemics. Again, this is about body language. Somebody who's trying to come too close to you, it probably could be a signal that that person feels or wants to show that he or she feels that you're close to him or her. Distances. Now look at these people. They are standing at different distances to each other. People over here are friends. They are probably close associates or romantically associated. They just know each other, right? They probably this could be a married couple. This could be say a fiance or a romantic partnered couple. So there are different distances that people maintain. This diagram explains that very well. There is a personal zone, this over here in peach color, the social zone, the one in green, and there's a public zone, right? Intimate zone is this pink. Haptics. Now, till here we've studied what these distances mean. Now, there are people who come close and they touch also. The study of touch is called haptics, right? So again, I have used two pictures from popular, communications, movies or TV shows. Now here, it is a scene from a movie called Mrityudand, where the protagonist and some of her friends are too close to this man. So are they, when they're physically close, are they really in the intimate zone? They somehow are, but not for the same reason. Here, it is about how they're touching. Look at the way they're touching him. It is very aggressive and threatening, right? So this fellow is the villain in that movie, and they are they've captured him. While in the second picture, look at the way this lady who has won the trophy, Gulzar Sahab, is handing over the trophy, while Rekha ji is hugging her and showing that she's very warm and close to her. So touch is very important. It also conveys a lot of messages. These are two people who are popular movie stars, Shah Rukh Khan and Aishwarya Rai. Who doesn't know them? But then look at the distance between the two. How fine actors express their emotions. Now, both of them are very good actors and they're expressing their emotions so well. The first picture is from the movie Mohabbatein, where both of them played romantic partners. While in the second picture, both of them, it's from the movie Josh, where both of them were playing a brother and a sister, right? So look at the distance between them. Here, the way they are touching each other and the way they're close to each other. Well, here they are close, but then there is a gap between the two. The way they're touching each other is different. So the touch and distance, the touch and space, management also conveys a lot of messages. A lot of other pictures from the same duo. Here it's from the movie Shakti. Here again, they're romantically involved in all these pictures. While here in Josh, it was altogether different. Now this is a real picture, right in the center. Shah Rukh and Aishwarya once again, and they are at a distance. They're not touching each other. They're not standing too close, but then since they're acquainted, they are probably in a social zone or a private zone maybe. So their families are close. They're close to each other, but then not in intimate zone, right? Okay, after this, we'll talk about some things which are beyond our personalities, our physical bodies, but then they convey a lot of messages. So there are signages that convey messages. So if you could see a logo over here, this conveys that there is a private radio station channel and what is the name and frequency of that channel. So you identify with this logo, right? There are designs that convey a lot, right? So designs can tell you which country they come from, which culture they hail from. Maybe they even could reveal a logo of a certain brand, right? So yes, and of course logos reveal a lot of things about that brand. what kind of a brand it is it meant for youngsters, is it meant for elderly, is it a female brand? So logos also explain a lot. They signify the identity of the product or the company. Colors reveal a lot. So the brands which are meant for youngsters or kids, they use brighter tones, brighter colors, maybe more of reds and yellows and oranges, while the ones that are made for elderly people, they'll use a different palette of colors. People who are tasteful, they will have a different palette of colors. In fact, a very good example comes from hospitals. So if you go to hospitals, traditionally they've been using greens or blues as curtains, bed sheets, covers. Why? Because greens and blues hail from the cool color palette. So these colors keep you patient, they keep you cool, they don't make you lose your temper, they don't make you panic. While the hot colors like red, yellow, orange, pink, these colors ignite a lot of energy. They built up excitement, and hence at places where you need to keep cool, these colors are not used. Though at some instances, I've seen some hospitals using pink as uniform of their nurses, but then ideally it is not used that way. A lot of symbols over here which signify certain brands or signages that tell you something. Go right, go left, right? So again, a sort of a case study. So these are the signages that tell you something. Over here, they all tell you the same thing. So world over, the public toilets have two parts: men's part and women's part. So the men's zone and women's zone is shown either by writing in words, but then languages differ. So at places where only people from a certain background or certain linguistic group are coming, it is okay that you write it in words. But then if people from different languages are visiting this place, you should have signages which explain without using words. Now here, look at this. There is this there is this softer figure who's wearing a round hat, a bigger one. While here, as a tuxedo wearing, bow wearing, a manly figure is wearing a longer hat with a lesser circumference. It explains which one is manly, which one is for females. Here in this picture, they have used a male lion with beards, a lot of facial hair, while the female lion has lesser of whiskers over here. So, which signifies which one is for male and which one is for female. Again, other signages they've used, right? They explain the here tie and a bow, a female bow is used to explain it. So again, nobody has explained what it is, but then anybody who looks at it will know where to go. Now this V sign is very popular worldwide. Politicians and celebrities use this V sign, pointing two fingers, very often. Even in our country, everybody uses it. Now this has different connotations. At times they use it for say to signify their victory. At times it is about maybe showing some sort of unity or something. Look at this, all of them use it. Yeah. So here in this picture, when they won the election, they signified it with this V. And here, when there was a trouble, also they were using the same sign. Yeah, USA, this V sign, it refers to a symbol of peace. While in Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and UK, this symbol is considered to be a sign of rudeness. Anybody who is making a V with his fingers, it shows that the person is rude and not polite. So it's weird, right? It varies. Another study, which is referred to as chronemics, is actually about usage of time. People who reach somewhere on time or keep very tight schedules and follow them are said to be very good at this art. In our culture also, keeping track of time and following it in a certain way means a lot. politicians or celebrities will always come a bit late. You must have heard stories of superstars reaching their sets 2 to 3 hours late, and everybody else would keep waiting for these people so that when they arrive, uh, the work can start. And what would they want to convey? That they are the ones whom the world waits for, right? So this time factor also means a lot. There are two ways that it conveys: monochronic time system, where people believe that time is money and let us not waste it. And there is another system where polychronic time system is followed, where people value time so much that they multitask in the same time. You don't need to get into the details of it, but then we should have an understanding of what it is. There's something called the meta communication. So when somebody says something, uh, people at the other end might understand something altogether different from it. The interpretation of the message by the receiver. Meta communication. Look at the first picture. The car has broken down. This fellow is trying to comprehend what it is and probably debug the fault. But then there's somebody who calls him on phone. So this dude says, that's just what I needed today. Now the other person on phone could probably understand that me calling this person is so important that he feels good, or maybe I don't know, he's looking for something and he's got it. He might not even understand that this fellow is going through trouble, right? There is another picture in yellow, a girl over there. She says, which the picture reads speechless. But then speechless could be a state which could come out of a lot of other things. Speechless because of fear, speechless because of unpreparedness, speechless because of surprise, speechless because you're in awe of something, you love something so very much. Speechless. Look at this, another woman over here who says, I am speechless, and she's so happy about it, right? So meta communication is about interpretation of messages by receivers. Cool. Again, a soft case study. Again, I've taken example of President Obama, who's been a very popular president there in USA. And here, the way he is touching this small little baby, handshakes are so very crucial. People judge each other through handshakes: how hard the hand was held, how long did you shake it, how firm your touch was. So all those things. So look at the way he has he's holding the girl's hand, President Obama over here, right? And he bends down, and the way he is looking at the girl eye to eye. Look at it, and look at the other kids, the way they are looking at the president. In this picture, president seems very poised, confident, and is enjoying. But look at the other people standing around. Now, this fellow, president, is standing right in the center. He is standing with folded hands. Looks very gentlemanly. Look at his clothes. He looks very you know. What do you say? Prim, proper, dressed, dashing, as you say. He looks very authoritative. He's standing right in the center on both of his feet, and he's not bent. He's not leaned. He's confident. So the body language shows that he is the one who's the center of attraction over here, right? Now, in this picture, the same fellow is holding a rugby ball in one of his arms while he's speaking on phone, not formally holding the phone, but then it is tucked here between the ear and the shoulder, which shows that he is in an informal mode over here. He's cool and he's balancing the fun and work part so very well. He has put off his jacket, and the way he's shown over here, he looks fit and healthy and conscious. And of course, a very manly pose that he has taken. And yeah, he has dressed himself in a very gentle, manly way. So he conveys, you know what, these pictures that are released by the department, the government of USA, are always scanned through, and very well thought photographs are released always, because they want to convey only certain messages and other pictures are not released. So they want to give out an image of the president that people should understand and believe, and this is how it is. This is how his image and brand is maintained or managed. Now look at this picture here. Two of them, President Obama and President Putin, they've had a discussion. After the discussion, they got up. Now Obama is all set and stout, and he directly starts moving, while President Putin looks a little clumsy over here. He has just risen, right? So he was labeled a school kid with this picture in a lot of newspapers in America. In these pictures, once again, President Obama looks very authoritative and warm. This was very regular thing that he did. Whomever he would meet, especially the heads of different nations, he would put his arm across and tap the shoulder, behaving as though he was the big brother. Look at all these pictures, right? Whether it is the chief of France or Russia, this is how he would do. Now, here in this picture, the fourth one, he is speaking to the then Prime Minister of India. And look at the way he's listening. But then things do go wrong with him as well. Here in this picture, the way he's holding the lady, it wasn't considered very well. The way in public he was enjoying his candy was again captured and was labeled indecent. In this picture, he looked concerned of his clothes, while here the way both of them are holding each other was not taken very healthily. Look at this picture. This is another case. Now, the first picture is of Farhan Akhtar, who's an actor, and there was this movie called Milkha Singh. Farhan Akhtar played the character. The original photograph is this. The second one is the original photograph of the ace athlete Milkha Singh. While in the first picture, this fellow is trying to ape his body language, and to a lot extent, he has been able to do that. To a great extent, he has done that. Yeah. So which simply shows that this art can be learned, the art of body language, right? So with this, we finish the unit 3, coming to unit 4, which says forms of communication at workplace have to be studied now. So the forms of communication in a workplace are broadly two: formal and informal. The formal communication is the communication which happens between the various channels and hierarchies in the organization. And in official and formal communication, the organizational policies and protocols are very well followed, while etiquettes, procedures, channels, and documentation remains utmost important in formal communication, while in informal communication, all this is not mandatory. So how does the formal communication work? There is a vertical formal communication, there is an horizontal communication happening in formal communication, and there is a diagonal kind of a communication happening. Vertical communication, it is either downwards or it is upwards. What is it? I'll explain it to you now. So in organizations, where superiors are saying or conveying a message to the subordinates or juniors, it is called a downward communication, coming from the top towards the bottom. While the vice versa, when the subordinates are conveying certain messages to the superiors, it is called the upward communication. Now, this is vertical, upward or downward, but it is vertical. What kind of downward communication examples can be discussed? Say job instructions being given by the superiors, policy documents, official announcements being made, production reports being handed over, procedure manuals. All this is shared by the superiors with the subordinates, downward communication. While upward communication, there are requests being made, reports are being submitted, certain complaints are being sent, and feedback is given. All of them are vertical, but then the first lot is downward, the other lot is upward communication. Horizontal or lateral communication, what is it? So when people at the same level are communicating with each other, it is called a horizontal communication or lateral communication. So the purchase manager speaking to production manager or quality control manager or sales manager, they're talking to each other, is horizontal or lateral communication. At times, there are two different verticals in an organization with the common top, probably the CEO. So people from different departments communicating with each other directly without taking in loop the authorities up in the hierarchy. This is called a gang plan, right? So people at the same level, they gang up and they get things done at their own level. This is called a gang plan, horizontal, though horizontal, but then this is slightly informal also. Diagonal or crosswise communication. Now people who crossing the protocol barriers communicate and get things done is called diagonal communication. So people at a certain lower level in one department communicating to somebody in another department at a higher level of hierarchy would be called a diagonal or a crosswise communication. Look at the picture, it explains it all. Now, this was all about formal communication. Now, what is informal communication? In offices, there are groups of people who flock together, who are who have affinities towards each other. They are friendly with each other, so they probably share their meals together, or they discuss things together, or they share jokes among themselves. All this is informal communication. Grapevine is one of them. Grapevine is one form of communication which is also taken into account when policies are being set, when decisions are being made. So what is grapevine? In grapevine, people are secretly sharing information. So it is not open. It is in whispers that these secretly, softly, swiftly, these information pieces are shared with other people. It is called grapevine. Here are certain examples of informal networks. A chain network where one person A is saying it to B, B says it to C, C shares the information with D, and D to the other person, right? While gossips, one person is telling to a lot of people, spreading the news. Oh, do you know that person? Oh, he has got an increment, right? So gossip. Probability, one person telling to people whom he or she is affiliated to, that person telling to certain other people. There are certain people who are left out, there are certain who get through these channels all the information. So this is called the probability channel. And the last one is cluster channel. So people in a certain cluster tell everybody in their own cluster. Now one of these person goes to another cluster, informs that person, probably formally, probably informally, in a friendly way. Now that person would inform everybody in his or her cluster, right? So this is called cluster informal network. This is how a lot of information is spread in an organization. So these were the various forms of communication in an organization, formal structure. Now coming to conflicts, wherever there are four people, more than two people, in fact, I should say more than one person, they will always have conflicts. Even if two people are there, they will have certain misunderstandings, certain frictions, certain disagreements. All these are labeled as conflicts, and these conflicts have to be resolved. We need to find out solutions to these conflicts. Unless and until this is done, we cannot function smoothly. We cannot achieve the targets. The efficiency comes down, the productivity comes down. So resolving any kind of conflicts is very, very important. How is it done? So it is a way of finding solutions for inter-organizational conflicts among employees. What is conflict resolution? So there is something which is called CRM, conflict resolution management, right? So there are a lot of companies who have their conflict resolution management systems in place, CRMS, right? So it is a way of finding solutions for inter-organizational conflicts among employees. Active listening, how do you do that? Point one is active listening. You should listen to people carefully. The mediator should, whoever is resolving these problems, he or she should listen to everybody, all two, three, four parties that are there in the conflict. Everybody should be heard properly, right? So listen properly, active listening. Rule number two, set goals. You need to set certain goals and targets, what you want to achieve through this resolution management. So probably your goal could be that everybody should live in peace, or conflicts should not cross a certain level, or people should be able to work properly is your goal. So you need to set goals before you begin. Number three, or C, stay professional. You cannot get personal and be bitching around with people. You cannot be biased. You should be professional and keep in mind that the targets of the company or the organization are of utmost importance. Right? So you need to stay professional. D, stay neutral. Don't be biased. You could have friends and people whom you're more close with, but then let us not do something which is not legal, which is not legitimate. Let us be fair to all and be neutral. And fast check. You should be able to complete your work quickly, right? At times, the proofs are taken off, and obviously, justice delayed is justice denied. This is what is being said in the legal system. So here also, you should keep in mind. You should check the facts, and you should do it quickly. All the facts should be checked nicely. Now, in times of crisis, communication becomes most crucial thing, right? Unless and until the right information is conveyed, the problems cannot be resolved. There are stages of crisis communication. So, first one is pre-crisis. There is some sort of communication that takes place before the crisis arrive, right? Now, this communication is about preparation. Monitor the crisis, make decisions about how to manage potential crises. What kind of crisis could come? How would you manage them? What kind of tactics would you follow? You need to train people to handle those crises. A very good example of this sort of strategy is firefighting training. And it is compulsory for all the organizations that you should have firefighting equipments in your premise. And then everybody in that premise, in that office, should be trained properly. They should know how to handle situations. So if there is a fire breaking out, people in your organization should know that these are the equipments and how you use them. So if it is a fire breaking out of say electrical malfunction, how to handle it. If it is due to some fossil fuels, how to handle that, how to put it off. If it is uh, whatever xyz reason, people should know how to handle it. Firefighting training, right? So this is a pre-crisis kind of a training. Crisis training, collect and process information of crisis team decision making. So places where already problems have risen, there is a disaster taking place. In these circumstances, how do you communicate is the crisis communication. When the thing is happening, create and disseminate crisis messages. While post crisis communication is again very important, and it is important from the point of view that in past something has happened and we need to be prepared for similar incidents in future. So people should be able to understand what has happened. So the analysis of previous crisis, past crisis, is to be done, and that is done under post crisis communication. Assess the crisis management efforts, provide follow up crisis messages as needed. Now, so we've gone through the various types of communication and all that. Now, I would tell you something about body language, and the body language that you should follow in interviews. You should have good postures. I've told you what good posture is. You should not lean forward. You should not lean backwards. If you lean backwards, you look arrogant. If you lean forward too much, you at times look aggressive or slouching or lazy, right? So be straight, have a neutral position, and sit tall. Eye contact should be made, but don't keep staring into or glaring into somebody's eyes. You should break the eye contact in between. You should not be, aggressive and rude by pointing fingers. Don't do that. Don't use your index finger much. Crossed arms. When you sit crossed arms somewhere, you look defensive. You look resistant. So avoid doing that. You shouldn't fold your arms, cross your arms. And excessive nodding. You nod your head, but too much of it is always bad. Fidgeting. You are doing you're speaking, you're interacting, you're conversing with somebody, but then at the same time your hands are searching for something, playing with a pen, playing with some coins, or playing with a mobile. All this is fidgeting, and let's not do that. It shouldn't be done. Hands behind the back. Keep your hands in your pocket or behind your back. Inhibits movement and makes you appear stiff. So pockets, hands in your pockets is a big no. Hands behind your back is again not appreciated. Mismatched expressions. You're saying something and your expressions are showing something else. Shifty eyes. Too much of movement of eyeballs is not good. That should not be done. Make sure you don't do it. It shows lack of confidence, or it also shows a suspicious behavior. Staring, locking eyes with someone for an extended period of time can be interpreted as aggressive and creepy at times, right? So don't just stare into somebody's eyes continuously. Okay, what is good? These were the things that you should not do. Now, what all things should you be doing? Use your hands well, right? Keep your voice tone down. You should be in a power pose. Divide your body weight on over both the legs. Don't multitask while discussing, right? When you're discussing something, focus on the discussion. Be a good listener, and then be a good expressive speaker. Remove barriers if there are any, right? If there is some noise, avoid that. Whatever, if there's anything that's disturbing the communication, remove that, get rid of it. Shake hands well, right? Not too stiff, not too soft. And obviously always keep in mind wet handshakes. So sweaty hands, sweaty palms should be cleaned first and then shake hands, right? So a good handshake. Smile, always keep smiling. And mirror expressions and postures. So when you're sitting with somebody that you're finding interesting, you often copy what all body language they are doing. So if people are sitting with folded arms or folded legs, one over the other, a lot of times the other person, if he or she is impressed or interested, would do the same thing. Now there are people who study body language, who understand body language. So at times when you want to show that you are interested in the other person, you could probably take up this tactic of mirror expressions and postures. So with this, we finish the first presentation. If there are any questions or doubts, you could ask them here. Else, let me begin with the second one today. Block 2. 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 units in this. We'll be talking about listening and reading skills here, interpersonal communication, communication in meetings, and presentation skills. I'll rush through it. Unit 5 talks about listening and reading skills. There are 4 distinct components of listening. Listening is composed of 4 things. It is not just hearing. Listening is more than hearing. So you hear the sounds, whatever sounds that reach your ears, you hear them. Yes, but then after hearing, as the sounds enter your head through your ears, you start understanding or comprehending them. So decoding happens within your brain. This is called understanding or comprehending. Then you retain, right? This thing remains there. There are certain facts and figures. There are certain realities, certain pieces of information that you retain. You remember them, and then recall at times when they are required. You recollect them. right? So these are the four components of listening. So it is always important that you hear properly, get rid of any kind of barriers in listening. Two, comprehend, understand it properly. If you do not understand, ask questions. Three, retain that information. Only important things should be remembered, and those that are not important should be forgotten. And recall when it is required. What are the benefits of good listening? Miscommunication doesn't happen, confidence increases, productivity increases, and time and cost is saved. Easy. Let us go to types of listening now. Now, there are various types of listening. One of them is biased listening. So, biased listening means you're not lending your ears to anybody else, but you're listening to only one person or party. Biased listening. Sympathetic listening. You have a soft corner for somebody, you feel bad for somebody, and you you feel sorry for somebody, and you have sympathetic feelings towards that person. So you're listening to that person. Oh, that has happened with you. Oh, that's so bad. Empathetic listening. Empathetic listening is feeling their pain, right? Understanding what that other person is feeling. And if you do that, your expressions will show it. Your responses will prove that. And then that is proven, the other person at the other end, sorry, the other person at the other end feels very therapeutic because of it. He feels healed because of it, right? So empathetic listening is again very important. Critical listening, when you're criticizing, when you're finding faults, when you're finding problems with something, through listening. So during a viva, when the external listens to what you people answer, he is being critical of your knowledge, right? So he listens critically. Informational listening, somebody who is listening to gain information, gain knowledge, get some facts and statistics, or something that that person does not know, is informational listening. Appreciative listening, when you're listening to music, when you're listening to people who are singing well, all this is it comes under appreciative listening. You're able to appreciate the other person, how good or bad that person is performing or speaking or singing, of course. Selective listening, you want to listen only certain things. So when you're listening to a news channel, there are advertisements, there are so many other things, but then you want to listen only to the headlines. So you pay heed to headlines, everything else you don't pay attention to. It is called selective listening. Rapport listening, when there are two people, there could be a crowd in a party, but there are two people who are fond of each other, who have a good rapport between them. So they are talking to each other, and they care not at all about anything else and anybody else. Who's there could be music, there could be 10 other people speaking around, but they are listening to each other. That is rapport listening. Let us take some examples. Lululemon was a company that manufactured sportswear, right? The outfits that you wear while, say, probably working out, or some athletics, or some kind of sports that you're performing. So this company, the founder was Chip Wilson, and when he was questioned in an interview that your clothes don't fit certain people, so to that he answered, overweight women, uh, uh, they are fat, they have fat thighs, and hence they cannot wear the clothes made by our company. Now, this was not taken very gently by people. They did not accept it. They said, how can you blame people for not making clothes fit for them, right? So this is an example of egregious communication, because the founder of the company was blaming the weight and body shapes and sizes of people, rather than uh, understanding, or rather than saying it swiftly. You could probably be saying that we make stuff only for sports persons, right, rather than blaming people that they are fat and hence they cannot wear those clothes. There was another company, Hay Farm Foods. So they made a sauce called Sri Racha. Now this ketchup or this sauce was made of chilies. Now they established a plant somewhere near a village where people were living. Now when they were making this sauce, it would smell very bad, right? So people living in that locality would often complain. They would go and file a complaint. But the people in this company did not pay heed to these complaints and communication, and hence later on they had to pay for it. They were stopped from working for one whole month, that is 30 days, and health officials in that locality, they also charged a fine. So obviously, any kind of communication coming to you, you should be a good listener and understand and take action. So what is being a good listener and what is being a bad listener? Certain tips are being given over here. Number one, interest area. If you're a good listener, you will seek an opportunity to listen, while a bad listener would show no interest in the subject. Content versus delivery. People who are good listeners, they focus on the content, while the people who are bad listeners, they are focusing on delivery, how that person is speaking, rather than focusing on the content, what that person is speaking, what and how. There's a difference. Biasness. There are people who are who are biased, so they are bad listeners. They are highly biased and they are bad listeners. The less biased you are, the better listener you're going to be. Flexibility. People who are good listeners, they are highly flexible. People with low flexibility are bad listeners. Listening ability is high with good listeners, while low with bad listeners. They're very attentive. The people who are good listeners are very attentive, while with low attentiveness, people are bad listeners. People who are easily distracted are bad listeners. People who are highly focused, the mental status, are good listeners. People who don't react very easily to every emotion, they are good listeners. People who react very easily, very quickly, very often are bad listeners. People who are able to summarize things mentally are good listeners. And people who are, though they're sitting at some place hearing something, but do not understand, do not absorb it, they are daydreamers and bad listeners. In short, we'll be studying the process of communication, sorry, listening now, the process of listening. You identify there is some sound, you receive it, you comprehend or understand it, then you evaluate it, how good or bad it is, what does that mean, how useful it is. Then you remember it, retention, and then you respond. How do you react to it? What is your response to it? This is the process of listening. These are the steps. There is again a case study. Kodak was a very popular, very successful camera making company. But then they made cameras in those times when these films were used for clicking photographs. I don't know if any of you have seen them in your childhood, but there were films that would fit into these cameras, and only 36 or 42 photographs would be clicked in a film. Once those 36 are done, you would send this film to a studio to get your photographs printed or published, right? So Kodak was the market leader in manufacturing these cameras. In 1975, Steve Sasson, who was an employee in Kodak, he took his invention to the company management. He took the new invention to the officials and said it was a digital camera, but people in that organization did not take it seriously, and they did not want to change their technology, and they told to shelve the project. So even as digital photography began to take off, several years later, Kodak ignored it. By 2012, the company had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. So they nosedived badly. They were the market leaders, but they failed badly because they did not understand the communication, the signals coming from market, and obviously the presentation given by one of their own employees. They did not take it seriously. Bad listeners. Toyota. For more than 3 years, their own employees kept telling them, kept sending memos to the CEO that cost-cutting measures were being taken, but these cost-cutting measures were impacting the safety of the cars. As a result, when these cars met with accidents, it was realized that there was a fault in it. The company had to bear losses because of it. They had to call back certain cars, make the changes. The brake systems were improved, and 5 people died because of it, just because these people did not pay heeds to the communication. Bad listeners once again. So, what are these barriers to listening? What makes somebody a bad listener? Selective listening, only listening those things that you want to listen. Preconceived notions about speakers. So when you go to these government offices, a lot of them, people, they don't even listen to it. They only want to listen to certain people with authority or who come up with certain channels. So preconceived notions that you have about the speakers, biases about the topic. There are certain topics that you don't want to listen to, or you have very strong notions or opinions about that topic. You don't listen. You are selective in listening. Number two, speed of speech versus speed of thought. The one who's speaking, the speed is probably very high or very low, and it does not match with the speed of thought, the way you're thinking, the way a receiver is thinking. So you would probably inform the other person in this case. Lack of interest. The one who's listening does not have any interest in listening or the topic that is being told. So there is lack of interest. Beliefs and attitudes, the value system, the way you look at things, the way you understand, comprehend things, the way you react as a society to them. So beliefs and attitudes. Reaction to the speaker. At times you just don't like the speaker. You probably hate the speaker for one or the other reason, or you're too much in awe of that speaker, or probably you're too much in love with that speaker that you don't even pay attention to what that person is speaking, but you're just lost somewhere. Repetition of words. A lot of times people would repeat the same words. As a result, it creates hindrance in proper listening. External distractions, all sorts of distractions that are coming, right? Now, how do you get rid of these barriers? Reduce distractions, prioritize listening over speaking, practice reflecting instead of deflecting. So, when you're listening, you should practice that you don't avoid people or things. Deflection. You should rather reflect, respond to what the other person is saying, right? It's about good listenership. Asking questions, always ask questions in between. That not only helps you understand the topic better, but again at the same time the person in front would also understand, would also believe that you are listening attentively. So ask questions and listen carefully before advising. When you say something, there is something that you want to convey to people, but before that you should listen carefully before you open your mouth, right? So overcoming barriers is about these 5 points. Let us take another case now. BlackBerry. I'm sure you people have seen BlackBerry, experienced BlackBerry phones. They were one of the earliest brands in market when mobile phones were launched. Nokia and BlackBerry, if you remember. Nokia was a middle class phone, while BlackBerry was elite class phone. People who have money would buy BlackBerries. So it was something that people used to flaunt, and it was a wonderful brand at a certain point of time. But then BlackBerry again, they took 6 years to come out with a phone that would better fit the growing demand of cheaper phones with apps and more powerful operating systems. BlackBerry thought whatever they were making was good. They were receiving feedback from various sources, but they did not take it seriously, and as a result, BlackBerry failed badly. They were in debt of 4.4 billion, right? The problem, there was somebody from the organization. He said once in an interview, the problem wasn't that we stopped listening to customers. Customers were saying it and people, they were listening it. But then we believed we knew better what customers needed long term than they did. So they were listening, they were hearing what people were saying, but they were not responding to it, they were not comprehending it, they were not working on it. So partial listening, it was not proper listening. BlackBerry listened to what customers said, and ignored the information. Is that listening? Of course not. Let us go to the next part of it, reading. Reading has three parts. One, word recognition. You're only when you understand these words, you're able to read. Two, comprehension, understanding it. And three, fluency, how fast, how without hurdles can you be reading it. Expanding vocabulary. So first thing, of course, as you said, word recognition. Now, when it comes to word recognition, you should have a vast vocabulary. You should be able to understand. You should have a good bank of words. How do you do that? How do you expand your vocabulary? One, discover the origin of words. Whenever you come across a new word, find out where has it come from. Where does this word come from? Is it of Latin origin? Is it does that come from Sanskrit? Does that come from whatever background? So discover the origin of the word. What is the original or root word in it? Two, concentrate on practical concepts around the word, right? So how does the word change its form? How is it spoken in different contexts? These are the practical concepts of the word. Try and understand them. Link words, right? So there are certain words that you learn newly, but then you don't remember them always. So in that case, you should link these words to other words and say stories, and this will help you remember those new words also. Vocabulary test. There are tests available online. You can go through these tests and improve your vocabulary. Word awareness. There are games that you can play, right? And then you can discuss with people. And wherever you come across a new word, please acquaint yourself to the word. Creating a group of words. Similar words can be grouped together. Contextual meaning. So at times when we don't have a dictionary, though these days mobiles have very easy access to dictionaries. Online you can look for these words. Certain mobiles also have built-in apps. So the context has to be understood. Even if you don't refer to the dictionary, when you read a word in a certain context, you understand what could probably be the meaning of that word. And read a lot. This will also help you improve your vocab. Interpersonal skills. Now, what are these interpersonal skills of communication? There are four. What is interpersonal? Between two persons, when it happens, it is called interpersonal. Intrapersonal, within one cell. But when two people are conversing or communicating, it will be called interpersonal. So what are the four principles of interpersonal communication? One, it is inescapable. Till the time you're a human being and you're alive, you will be communicating. So you cannot escape that. So interpersonal skill is inescapable. Irreversible. Once it is done, you cannot reverse it. Once you have said something, that's why they say you should judge your words, weigh your words before you speak anything. So it is irreversible. Once it is done, it is done. It's complicated. There are so many aspects to it: verbal, non-verbal, situations, occasions, time, everything, pitch, tone, voice. It is very complicated, the interpersonal communication, and it is contextual. In what context are you talking? It could have different meanings altogether. There's something called emotional intelligence. So people who have good emotional intelligence, they're not carried away easily. They don't get aggressive. They don't lose their temper easily. They don't panic easily. This is what you call the emotional intelligence, which is very important when we are talking about communication, especially formal communication. Now, what are these interpersonal management skills? Self-awareness, who you are, what are you, what do you do, what are your strongholds, what are your weaknesses. I don't know how many of you have actually done the Johari window thing, or probably SWOT analysis of themselves, or SMART analysis of themselves. I don't know, has anybody done that? But then please do that. Note down all your weaknesses, all your strengths, all the opportunities that you have, and all the weaknesses or threats that you face. Write them on a piece of paper. Do an analysis that will help you solve a lot of problems of your life. Self-awareness, self-management, of course, is a part of it. how you manage yourself, right? How you carry yourself, how do you manage your time, how do you everything, right? How do you divide your focus at home and in office? Social awareness, what is happening around, what is what is being being said on social media maybe. So social awareness, read newspapers, watch TV channels, be there on YouTube, and of course subscribe to one of those apps which tells you about the latest news, not only in your city but the country and the world as well. Relationship management, there are people who are your clients or your suppliers or dealers. You should be able to have good relationships with them. So these interpersonal skills play a very crucial role over here as well. So these relationship management skills should be learned. Building communication skills, language and all communication, it should be good. Be empathetic. You should be able to understand other person's problems. You should be able to connect with them at a certain level, and that other person should feel that this person feels so much for me. Active listening, not just listening, active listening. Avoid stereotyping. In our minds, we make pictures of people and we believe those pictures to be true, that, based on clothes, based on language, based on so many other things. So please avoid stereotyping people. Okay. So how do you fare well in interpersonal skills? Ask open-ended questions. Always ask questions which are open-ended. What is closed-ended and what is open-ended? Can anybody tell me? Oh, I did not ask any questions today. Are you people there?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yes, sorry, sir.
what do you think are closed-ended questions and what all are open-ended questions?
So, open-ended questions are where listening can speak more. He can explain the answer.
Okay.
And close-ended where just he will give answer like very close, like yes or no.
ठीक है,
Like you
ठीक है,
like
ठीक
yes,
है.
I like
What's your name? Who's that?
Mohit.
Mohit. Hey, Mohit.
Right.
Absolutely correct. So, closed-ended questions are those questions which will have a specific limited answer. How are you? I'm fine. Do you like milk? Yes or no? Right now, these are very specific questions that will delimit the other person from speaking. Right, only in within 2-3 words the other person can reply. But then open-ended questions, while are those where the other person gets a lot of opportunity to speak. Those are called open-ended questions. So if you want to improve your interpersonal skills, if you want to have a nice a conversation with somebody, you should always ask open-ended questions. So rather than asking, do you like books? You should say, what sort of books do you like? Have you been to university? What did you study at university? Kindly keep yourself mute.
रखो रही तो
Cool. So you should always ask open-ended questions, right? What sort of books do you like? Which is your favorite season and why? What are you doing right now? People should be able to express themselves. They should get some scope to speak. These are open-ended questions. Do that.
Roopak, your slide is not full screen, I think.
Okay, let me do that.
How are you feeling? अच्छे होंगे मतलब कुछ अलग सा फीलिंग
Yes, now it's.
वाओ तुम आजकल के बच्चे
Now it is.
that is so chill.
Now, you should keep the conversation going with small talks. Right now, what is small talk? Choti choti baatein? No, things which are not very crucial, very important, very what do you say, high tech, or very exclusive. That should not be done. So topics which are common, which are easy to digest, things which normally people are interested in. What could be things which come under small talk? Would probably be, say, some blogs or websites, probably purchasing a new car or a mobile, maybe some renovations happening, maybe your kids' artwork, prize, vacations, gardens, seasons, whatever. But then things like politics, religion, nuclear disarmament or fusion, nuclear fusion, criticizing somebody, these are not small talks. So you should avoid these things. Give encouraging feedback whenever you're speaking. You should be giving out feedback to the other person. Did you like that person? Are you on the same page? Saying yes, no, huh, wow, oh, whatever. All these things tell that you're understanding, you're listening, and that is very, very important. So you should give encouraging feedback to the other person. You could even say things like, "Oh, is that so? Oh my goodness. What did you do? What did you say then? That's amazing." These are all feedback, right? आप बता रहे हैं सामने वाले को, you're telling the other person that you're listening and there is a response to what you're saying, right? So give encouraging feedback to the other person. Point number 3. Point number 4. Say words of sensory nature. Oh, I see. Oh, I imagine that. I feel, I tell, I sense. All these words. Now, these words will help you connect with that other person very easily. Where do you see yourself in a year's time? Tell me about the time that the boss sold your car without realizing. What's your sense of current stock market? Right? So sense, imagine, feel, tell, all these words are of sensory nature. They should be used as much as possible if you really want to keep your conversation going, right? Be aware of your internal monologue. Internal, something that goes within. Monologue, only one person speaking. Dialogue, two people. Die matlab two hota hai, right? Die means two, while mono means one. So when only one person is speaking, it is a monologue. Internal, when you're speaking to yourself. So at times when you're in a conversation, probably say interview or some kind of a board meeting or something, internally you are worried. Am I going right? Am I saying the right things? Am I being asked these questions? All these things. So you kind of panic yourself, or your attention diverts, or your focus gets distracted. So it's important that you should not have much of internal monologue. You should be confident, breathe deeply, focus on the subject. This will help you. You might also be worrying about what the other person is thinking. Yes, of course. Feeling self-conscious when carrying on conversation with others is not unusual, but it's also not productive. So it happens with everybody, but then you should focus so that you're productive. You're doing good job. Number 6, respond thoughtfully. Someone who remains awkward or uncomfortable in your presence. Oh, why does that happen? Because the other person um, probably is offended by what you're saying. And how do you offend people? You offend people by talking about weight. Probably the other person is fat. You could be talking about qualifications or salaries or religion or their personal relationships, their personal life. All these things, they can at times, or a lot of times, in fact, be offensive. So let us avoid these topics as far as possible. Respond thoughtfully. Maintain the equilibrium. Equilibrium means when there is a state of equality, right? It is balanced. So when you're talking to somebody, there should be an equilibrium. You should speak, the other person should also get chance to speak. You hear, that person also hears. You, when he is cracking a joke, you laugh at it. When you are saying something comic, the other person enjoys it. So there should be an equilibrium, right? So the responsibility is of course of both the parties, but then since you are intended in striking a conversation, you want to keep it continuing, you should be able to entertain the other person, right? So keep the equilibrium on. You should ask a few questions to yourself during the conversation. One, am I giving the other person an opportunity to speak? ऐसे तो नहीं मैं अकेले बोला जा रहा हूँ. It's only me who is speaking. Is the other person speaking? Is the other person getting an opportunity? Think about it. Two, I am actively listening by using cues such as that's interesting. So you're responding. There is a feedback happening, right? And three, am I being accepting of occasional silences? When two people are speaking, at times there are silences in between, which are called pauses, right? So you should be easy with those pauses. Don't panic. Don't think that you're losing out on the conversation or you're losing the interest of the other person, since there is a silence, there is a small gap between the conversation. So don't think that way, right? Be patient and take up the next topic. And then $1 million question. Ask questions as much as possible. When you want to involve people and ensure that those people are listening to you, you should keep asking questions in between, right? So this question always has a lot of value in say taking up the relationships to the next level. And of course, you understand the topic, the conversation better when you ask questions. So it is important that you ask a lot of questions. Invite the other person to get involved. Invite them to ask questions. Invite them to give suggestions. Invite them to share their own thoughts and opinions, and inspire other people to have a good conversation. So invitation and inspiration, and you should get inspired by other people. If they're saying something, they could bring in some topics, they could bring in some ideas, some concepts. Be inspired and take link and hint from it, and probably discuss those topics as well. That will help you a lot in a way. By see the other person mentioning certain things shows that he or she is interested in it. So when you're talking about those things that the other person is interested, the conversation is going to be interesting for that person, and you can achieve your targets through those conversations. Listen actively. This is the core idea which we've begun our presentation today. A conversation will go nowhere if you're too busy thinking of other things. So when you're listening, it is not only about hearing, it is also about comprehending, right? And then retention, and then reusing it somewhere. If you listen well, you'll identify questions to ask based on the other person's statements. And forget yourself. Don't be too conscious. What am I wearing? How am I looking? How are my clothes, my hair? Am I speaking correct English? Am I being too loud? Come on. Think of it once and then forget it. Come on. Don't be too self-obsessed. You know, the idea is then when you're talking about other people, they feel that you are being interested in them, you're showing interest in them, and you want to invest in them, and that's how they get convinced easily. The other person can be convinced, the other person can be you know inspired or encouraged to work in your favor. So it's important that you talk about the other person more rather than yourself. You will always have disagreements in between, but then that should be done very softly, right? So say what you want to say, and add words like and instead of saying but. Do not manipulate. Do not force your agenda. Do not keep on repeating what you want to say. Be analytical. Be reasonable. Go ahead. If there is a disagreement, be respectful. Say sorry. Say I'm afraid. Say pardon, and then continue with what you want to say. Cool. There would be silences. Be okay with those silences. You could probably, if you're in a party or somewhere, you could take a sip of your drink. You could bite something. You could look towards the walls and the decor and things in that room, and then begin probably the next topic, next thing that you want to discuss. So there would be silences occasionally. Don't feel awkward about these silences. And finally, you should know where the conversation ends, right? The other person is losing interest, or probably the topic that you want to discuss is already over, it is done. Understand where the conversation should end, right? When you do it on a positive note, the other person will probably be inspired to meet you next time and get into a conversation. So it's important that you understand the limit where to end. Cool. So this is about listening, reading, all that. Now, let us talk about meetings. What are meetings? Meetings are group communication. These days, digital meetings happen, online meetings happen, right? So there people are not meeting physically, but there is a group. So when there is a group conversation or a communication happening, it is said to be a meeting. Now, this meeting should always have a defined agenda. Why are we meeting? What is the reason for meeting? So meetings will always have agendas. At a set time, there will be a fixed time of the meeting. People will know when to meet and where to meet, right? And there is a estimated established duration that the meeting will continue for. So meetings, that's the definition of meeting. A meeting is a group communication in action around a defined agenda at a set time for an established duration. What are the objectives of a meeting? क्या लक्ष्य होते हैं meetings में? Sharing information, improving productivity, resolving communication gaps, addressing the concerns of employees, forming policies, clearing doubts, addressing staff grievances, and obtaining feedback. Majorly, these are the works that happen in an organization. और मीटिंग में इन पर ही डिस्कशन होता है या इन ऑब्जेक्टिव्स के साथ में डिस्कशन हो रहा होता है. टाइप्स ऑफ मीटिंग, कैसी कैसी मीटिंग्स होती हैं? स्टेटस अपडेट मीटिंग, व्हाट हैज हैपेंड, how far have we gone? Yesterday in today's newspaper only details have been given. The central vista which is being built in New Delhi, which is actually our new parliament being built, it is the work is being done in record time, I tell you. It is being completed before time. So sharing status, our prime minister takes regular meetings and takes feedback from people about what is the status of various projects, right? So status update meetings, decision making meetings. There are certain circumstances that you're facing, the organization is facing, and we need to take a decision on it. So those meetings which are held to take these decisions are called decision making meetings. Planning meetings, the meetings where you plan certain things for future, strategies are being built, what actions have to be taken are being planned. These are called planning meetings. Collaboration meetings, where people they get into tie-ups with others. Collaborative meetings, collaboration meetings. Problem solving meeting, there's an agenda that some mishap has taken, or there is some challenge that we are facing, so that problem has to be resolved, and to find what all things can be done, how to do it, you call for a meeting. This meeting is called a problem solving meeting. Brainstorming, where ideas are being thought of. You want to do something new, you want to build something new, some new concept has to begin. Now you have to brainstorm. In brainstorming, certain number of people come together and they discuss these topics and they find solutions to these topics. This is called brainstorming. Team building meetings, when people are new, they don't know each other. So there are these informal meetings where people get in touch with each other, they eat together and they plan things together. These are called team building meetings. Debrief meetings, right? Now these are the meetings where brief is given. Probably the chief has spoken and then there is somebody else who would explain what was being said. So debrief meetings. Innovation meeting, something new is being done. Yeah. Just a second. There are certain manners, certain etiquettes that you need to follow, right? What are these etiquettes? You should always be on time for a meeting. Don't get late. Make introductions. So there could be new people, there could be people who do not know you or probably do not know the details of your work. Please make introductions. Have a strong agenda. Your agenda should be clear in a meeting. Why are we meeting? Why is everybody spending their time? what is the target that you want to achieve. That's what is called the agenda for a meeting. Sit appropriately, nicely. Your back should be straight. Your legs should be nicely, folded. All that has to be done. Speak up. You cannot keep quiet. You need to speak. Understand the unwritten speaking rules. So there are rules which are not written somewhere in books, but then we understand them well. Right? Do not take phone calls during the meeting. No phone in the meeting. No drink in the meeting. And once you're done with the meeting, you need to clean up yourself. Do not save all your questions for the end. If you have a lot of questions coming, then keep asking them in between, unless and until the speaker wants you to write them all together and ask them later on. Otherwise, you can interrupt. Input, process, output, IPO model of meetings. There is a model for meetings that take place. Is it getting too boring?
Sir.
Oh, yes. So, Spanish education, you wanted to say something. Are you there?
Am I audible?
Yeah. What's your name?
Yeah, my name is Mohit, sir.
Rohit. Mohit. Okay. Yes, Mohit. Say.
You talked about types of listening, so I have a question from that. So
Okay.
let's suppose if two persons are doing a repo listening, okay.
Yeah.
So can it be biased listening as well for someone else?
So see, when you see, these can overlap certainly. In a repo, there could be a bias also. But then, see, see, I have two kids, right? And when they're fighting, and I have seen what went wrong, when I listen, I'm listening to one of them, and I'm not listening to the other person. That would be called biased listening. When you're giving only one person chance to be heard, the other one is not given a fair chance. You're not lending ears. You're not even paying heeds to what the other person is saying. That is biased. While rapo is a two-way process. Both of them are interested in each other. They have certain things to share. They share a good bond. So they are discussing it among themselves only, and they pay no attention to anybody else, anything else surrounding them. So that is a rapo listening, right? So there's a difference between them, but then always see, there is no black and white in this world. Things are in grays. So there are overlaps happening. There are two things happening at the same time also. So yeah,
Okay.
I hope I've made myself clear. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I have one more question. Can I ask?
There's one more question. Okay. Yeah.
Let's suppose there is a manager who speaks or who talks or who communicates with everyone. He does not believe in grades. Like if there's a sweeper, if there's a guard, if there is a like analyst, senior analyst, like he talks with everyone. Okay. And on the other hand, there's a manager who speaks only with the same person, same grade person. Like manager speaking is only with the manager. He will not speak to the guards, sweepers, or like lower grade employees. Okay,
Yeah.
so which one is good? Which one is better? First one or second one?
The second one, of course, is not doing his job well.
Hmm.
As a manager, you need to communicate to everybody. Yeah. So when we spoke of formal communication, we also spoke of channels of communication: upward, downward, vertical, horizontal, diagonal. There'll be people from other departments who want to say something to you, who are junior, who are at a junior level, and they want to say something, communicate something, which could be great, of great use to you, right? I've quoted some examples also. Uh, uh, so companies where BlackBerry, I said, Toyota, I mentioned, in all these cases, there were people, Kodak, there was a junior saying something to the senior, but then they did not hear and the company failed badly. So a manager who does not pay heeds to people who are junior, people who may not be directly reporting to him, is a bad manager, definitely a bad manager. He's not doing his job well. A good manager must listen to all. Yes,
Thank
certainly.
you. Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Let's get back to the presentation. So for meetings, there is a model being made. How should you conduct meetings? How should they happen? The IPO model, the input process output model, suggests that many factors influence a team's productivity and cohesiveness. It suggests that there are interactions and feedback between contributing factors. So what if there is a meeting happening, there'll be multiple parties, a lot of people, they will be interacting, they will be giving some inputs, they'll be getting some outputs, they'll be giving some feedback. So inputs are the conditions that exist prior to the group activity, whereas process the interactions among the group members, and outputs are the results of the group activity that are valued by the team or the organization. So there are certain things that you prepare before the meeting and the meeting begins. There are things that happen during the meeting, and after the meeting, whatever comes out. So agenda is input, the discussion is the process, and the final decisions being made are the outputs. So input process output model, IPO model for meetings. What are inputs? Individual level factors, team members' personality traits, strengths, weaknesses, preferences, dislikes. Team level factors could be there, right? The resources the team has access to, how large the team is, how much time the team spends together, how close the team members are. Then there are environmental factors like how the team works with other teams, whether the team is a part of an organization. These are the various factors that add on to the inputs. Steps being taken to plan activities, initiating actions, monitoring resources, monitoring the progress, maintenance of interpersonal relationships, dealing with conflicts, and members' sense of commitment to the team. They are all a part of the process that takes place in an organization or in a meeting. What are the outputs? Whatever is being achieved, whatever is being accomplished, the final productivity, the performance that is shown, the satisfaction of members, and what all innovations are taking place. These are all the outputs of a good or a bad meeting. This is the last unit of block 2, which is unit 8, and it is about the presentation skills. The way I am presenting to you, there are a lot of situations where employees have to present themselves, present some ideas, some concepts. When they're presenting a new product, maybe, or a service, a new business plan is being shown to people, you need to deliver certain presentations, right? A market plan of a product launch is to be shared, or increase or decrease in sales has to be discussed. Maybe a seminar or a conference is taking place. Maybe some reports are being shared or are being analyzed, or probably you're in an interview or a proposition that you need to express yourself. In all these situations, presentation is very important, is a very crucial way of communication, right? How do you plan a presentation? There is a trick to it, the STAR strategy. What is STAR strategy? I also mentioned it some time ago. What is STAR strategy? S stands for situation. You need to understand the situation, set the scene. What all is happening? What are the problems? Setting the situation. T is the task. Describe the purpose, right? A, explain what is to be done. Action. And R, result. Now, when in an interview or a presentation, post an activity, you can probably be talking about the task that you took up, the action that you actually took, the result that came out, and the scene that existed. STAR, star. Now, when you want to plan when you are doing a star, taking up a star strategy, there are filters to it. 5W and 1H. Who? The target audience. Why? The purpose. Whenever you're preparing a communication or a presentation, you need to analyze these 5-6 pointers. Who is your target audience? Whom are you making the presentation for? Why are you making? What is the purpose? What do you want to convey? What all information do you want to share? Where are you doing it? Are you doing it online? Are you doing it in an office? Is it a classroom? Where are you going to present this concept? Right? So, place, when, the time. Are you going to present at night? Would you be speaking in the morning? Is it going to be a noon time? When? 5 days from now, 10 days after, today, or maybe a month later, whenever, when, time, what is the content, right? What all things are you going to share or show or speak in that presentation, right? So all these have to be kept in mind. Glossophobia. Now, what is glossophobia? Glossophobia is actually the fear of stage. Going on stage and speaking, those people who are afraid of doing it are said to be suffering from glossophobia. And how do you get rid of glossophobia? Because presentations देंगे, then you'll have to speak you'll have to speak on stage, no? You'll have to stand in front of a lot of people and speak. So if you're afraid of speaking in front of public or saying it on stage, you have this problem of glossophobia. What should you be doing? Get organized. All your information, all the knowledge, all the facts and figures, write them somewhere, jot them down, mark them in color, so that when you need them, you can easily find them out. Knowledge of the topic, should read a lot of books. Oh man, as many books as possible, please read. This helps you a lot, not only as an individual, but then in coming days, you can share those pieces of information, knowledge gained from those books with so many other people. So read a lot, practice, right? If you want to, if you have got to present something on stage, you should practice it. Close your doors of your room and probably stand in front of a mirror and practice saying that presentation, right? That will help you improve. Challenge specific worries. There are certain things that you're concerned about, challenge them. Visualize success. You should be able to imagine when you would be successful, when you have completed your presentation nicely. How happy would you be? How confident would you be? So visualize your success. Deep breathing. Always breathe deeply. Take deep breath as far as possible. Focus on presentation. Your all concentration should be on your presentation and not how people are reacting, what expressions people are giving, all that. Forget it. You should focus on the presentation. Do not fear a moment of silence. There'll be moments when people are quiet, when they are silent. Don't worry about it. This had to happen. So the silence of the time lag had to happen. It happens, but then that does not mean that the conversation comes to an end, right? And that you don't get an opportunity to speak any further. So don't have this fear of silence, and recognize your success. When you do it nicely, you should probably treat yourself and make yourself happy and comfortable, right? So yes. This was about day two, the block two. We had begun with certain things from remaining from block one. We took up block two today. I don't know. Do you want me to start with the third one, or should we do it tomorrow? You all seem tired. A lot of people have left already. So let's break here. We'll do it tomorrow. Would that be okay?
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So tomorrow we'll take up block three, and if there are any queries or questions, you can even send it to me uh, through email. Maybe my email is rjroopak@gmail.com. You can do that. Cool. Or maybe when these videos are uploaded on YouTube, you can write it in comments. Right? Cool. So for today, we'll break here. We'll catch you tomorrow, same time, 6:30, and try being on time so that we can begin at the right time. Anyway, lovely being with you people. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.